This orientation is intended to serve as a partial summary of safe work rules common to our operations. It allows for a meeting between the contractor and the safety department or area superintendent before work begins. It is not all-inclusive of the safety rules and practices in the company or industry. Contractors are required to follow all applicable federal and state safety regulations in addition to Montana Refining Company Incorporated safety rules. Failure to follow such guidelines may result in removal from the job site. It is the responsibility of the contractor supervisor and a company representative or project manager to confer with the foreman or operator in charge of the unit in which the work is to be done to see that necessary precautions are taken to make the area safe. Afterwards, a work permit will be issued but not considered valid until signed by the foreman and operator in charge or the area supervisor. The work permit is to be in the possession of workers while they are performing the work. Contract employees are not to enter the units until the work permit is valid. Smoking is restricted to designated areas. Single-action lighters are prohibited. Strike-anywhere matches are prohibited. Smoking is prohibited in any vehicles inside the refinery. All chemicals must be stored in appropriate containers. Flammable liquids must be stored in UL-listed containers with a flame arrestor in self-closing lids. Gasoline must be stored in gasoline cans. Diesel must be stored in diesel cans. All secondary containers must be labeled. Safe work permit is the minimum requirement before any work begins. Hot work permit is required before any work begins where an arc, spark, open flame, or any other ignition-producing equipment is used. If any hot work is to be performed, contractors are required to have fire extinguishers available. Confined space entry permit is required before any entry into a permit-required confined space. An alky permit is required for any work in the HF acid alkylation unit. There is specialized training before you can enter the alky unit. Excavation approval signatures are required on any safe work permit or hot work permit before any excavation work begins. Fire extinguishers are provided in all the units as needed within the unit. Do not remove one fire extinguisher from one unit to take to another. All contract welders are required to have their own approved fire extinguishers on their welding rig. Fire extinguishers are required to be in the immediate area where ignition-producing work is conducted. As stated before, contractors are responsible for providing their own approved fire extinguisher in work areas where ignition-producing work is being conducted. Vehicles are subject to inspection and search upon entering and exiting the facility. Speed limit within the process units of the refinery is 5 miles per hour. It is 10 miles an hour in the tank farm area. You are restricted on entering units or firewalls without approval on a permit. Contact the operator in charge of the unit before entering any unit with a vehicle. If you leave your vehicle unattended, the parking requirements include engine off with the keys left in the ignition, park or in gear, chock the wheels, and set the emergency brake. If you don't know which way your vehicle will roll, chock both sides of the wheel. A steam whistle is blown as the emergency signal. That whistle is blown every day at 12 noon and at 12:30. If the whistle is blown at any other time other than 12 noon or 12:30, it constitutes an emergency. We do not blow the whistle on weekends, we do not blow it on holidays, and we do not blow it at night. If you do hear the whistle at any other time than 12 noon or 12:30 on regular business work week, it is considered an emergency. The following codes designate the location of the emergency. A series of one blast with pauses between them is the code for the unit area or Zone 1. A series of two blasts with pauses in between is the code for the tank farm, lab, and stock area or Zone 2. A series of three blasts with pauses in between is for the light oil loading rack across the street, and that is Zone 3. One long single blast is to evacuate the facility. There will be no vehicle traffic once an emergency signal is given, except for CMR and emergency vehicles. In an emergency, shut down any equipment, leave the area via a safe route, and reassemble at the assigned location. There are two assembly locations. First, the east side of 10th Street Northeast in the parking lot, and second, the West Welding Shop. Report to the nearest assembly site from where you are working. Depending on the unit or area of the plant where work can be done, make sure all known hazards that can potentially affect the employees are discussed before work begins. Any employee that is unsure of or thinks a job is unsafe is welcome to bring the issue to the safety department for further discussion. If you think a job is unsafe, do not do it. Entry and exit. Sign in and sign out. Card in and card out. There are sign-in sheets at the main office and at the stock office, and there are card readers throughout all the gates and doors around the facility. When refueling an engine, make sure the engine is off before you refuel it, just like you do at a gas station. Welding machines and compressors must be shut off when workers leave the job. Acetylene and oxygen cylinder valves must be closed. Acetylene and oxygen hoses must be removed from inside confined spaces when not in use. Make sure all regulators are taken off and caps are replaced at the end of your shift. Portable lighting and electric equipment should be in good condition and will be subject to inspection by the safety department. No frayed cords, no grounds broken off, etc. Cords shall be provided with a 3-prong grounding connection or equipment double insulated. Low voltage equipment, or GFC, ground fault interrupter protected equipment, is required in confined spaces. Use may require a hot work permit. Check with the operator in charge or the safety department before using. Barricades and road closed signs shall be observed. Removal of such items shall be limited to authorized personnel. Remember, barricaded roads are there for your protection. Do not drive around them. Do not drive through them. Do not park between them. And do not skirt the side of them. Abide by all road barricades. The personal protective equipment minimum to wear and work at Calumet Montana Refining is an ANSI standard rated hard hat, safety glasses, ANSI standard Z87.1 with side shields, and ANSI rated FR clothing for outer layer wear. No tennis shoes, no flip-flops, and no sandals. All leather over-the-ankle work boot with a defined heel is appropriate footwear. Steel-toed boots are recommended but not mandatory. Other PPE, depending on the job to be performed, may be required. Please do not park your vehicles in front of any fire equipment, hydrants, extinguishers, foam cars, etc. Please do not block these in case we have to get to them in an emergency. Report all incidents and accidents, regardless of severity, to your supervisor and the Calumet, Montana Refinery Safety Department. Contractors are reminded, if it's closed, leave it closed. If it's open, leave it open. If you need something opened or closed, get with the operations department or maintenance department, and they will take care of that for you. Contract employees must be trained in lockout, tagout procedures. Do not enter any confined spaces without approval from the Calumet, Montana Refining Safety Department. Contract employees must be trained in confined space standards before engaging in such activities. Cell phones are not permitted in the plant. Do not carry them on your person. However, we do allow contractors to carry cell phones in their vehicles. We do understand that contractors do come from far away. They have bosses to answer to, families to answer to, etc. So we do allow contractors to keep them in their vehicle. If you need to make a phone call or retrieve your messages, you must go inside the vehicle, shut the door, and roll up your window. You can use your cellular device at that time. If you're driving, you need to pull over and park before you use your phone. Do not carry your cell phones out in the plant. You'll be told the first time to put your cell phone away. The second time you have to be reminded, you will be escorted off the site. It is important that you maintain good housekeeping at all times. Keep your work area picked up at the end of every day. There are enough hazards out here that we don't need to worry about slips, trips, and falls. Safety harness with lanyards is required with working over 6 feet above grade in the facility, unless standard railing is provided. The use of personal man baskets shall be in compliance with 29 CFR 1926.550. You will be tied off 100% of the time to your man basket. Scaffold construction shall be in compliance with 29 CFR 1926.451. You are to wear fall protection when you're on a scaffold that is tagged yellow. If it is tagged green, it means it meets all requirements of an approved scaffold, and you do not have to tie off. Before climbing a tagged scaffold, read the tag. It needs to be signed off every day by a competent person. Make sure you inspect your ladders. Make sure the ladder is in satisfactory condition. Inspect all parts. Make sure the feet are to the bottom of the ladder. If there are deficiencies with the ladder, tag and remove from service. Make sure a stepladder is used as a stepladder and not as an extension ladder. Make sure your ladder is tied off to a piece of equipment or support before you use it. Make sure when you are done using your ladder that you put it back on the manufactured ladder racks throughout the plant so they can be easily found and returned to use. Vehicles and materials shall not be positioned such that they block any roadways or emergency access without prior management approval. While riding in the bed of a pickup truck, you must sit in the bed of the truck and not on the fender wells, not on the bed caps, and not on the tailgate with your feet hanging down. You must be seated in the bed of the truck. Driving in the tank dikes is prohibited without approval on a permit. The reason for this is that propane, butane, and H2S are all heavier than air, and they can gather in low-lying areas. The MSDSs are located on computers using a program called MSDS Pro. If you need to use MSDS Pro, please find any computer in the plant, the stock office, the maintenance computer, or the control room computer, and click on the icon that says MSDS Pro. Type in what chemical you're looking for, and it will pop up. You can read it or print it off. It's there for your convenience and use 24 hours a day while you're working here. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we sample hydrofluoric acid in the HF-Alky unit. There is a potential of hydrofluoric acid vapors getting outside the boundary limits, so we turn on the special blue strobe lights. One on the north side, one on the east side, one on the south side, and also put barricades on the road north of the Alky unit to let people know there is something going on inside the Alky unit. Make sure when you see these barricades up and the lights flashing, you get upwind, crosswind, and away from the area. This is for your protection. There are 3 nuclear gauges out in the plant. There are signs at each location. They are a magenta and yellow radioactive material sign. Just understand where they are. There's no cause for alarm when you see these. There's one in the crude unit, one in the sodium hydrosulfide unit, and one in the HF acid alky unit. Horseplay is prohibited for obvious reasons. The presence of illegal drugs and alcohol is prohibited. The company has the right to search, including drug testing personnel and searching vehicles upon entry and exiting the refinery. If there is reasonable suspicion of a contract employee under the influence of alcohol or drugs, Calumet Montana Refining will consult with the contractor supervisor and request a drug and alcohol screen for the employee. If the contract company refuses screening, the contract company will forfeit its right to work at Calumet Montana Refining. If the company gives permission and the contract employee refuses, the employee will be escorted off-site and will not work for Calumet Montana Refining in the future. If the employee agrees to be tested, the employee will be taken to the collection site where a sample will be taken. If the sample comes back negative, we'll apologize and counsel the employee and let that employee go back to work. Contractors are responsible for providing their own first aid supplies or medical care for their employees. If you need or run out of first aid supplies, please see the safety department. If what you need is available, it will be given to you free of charge. The main thing is to make sure your employees are taken care of. Please report all injuries regardless of severity to Calumet Safety Department. A contract incident or accident report will be presented to Calumet Safety Department so a follow-up on the incident can be accomplished. Contractors are responsible for providing respiratory protective equipment and training necessary for their employees. Calumet Montana Refining will not provide respirators to contract employees because we do not maintain the contract company's respiratory protection program, and we do not fit test nor do we medically clear any contract employee. Contract employees which may be subject to using respirators shall be clean-shaven at the time of use. Calumet Montana Refining Safety Department must be notified of any respirator use by contract employees prior to use. There are 3 types of work stoppage at Calumet Montana Refining. One is operator control, one is safety infractions, and the last one is unsafe conditions. The contractor must meet with the safety department or area superintendent to review these requirements prior to commencing work. The goal of this safety orientation is to facilitate the safe and efficient completion of contracted work. Cooperation and communication between the contractor and the company is essential to meeting this goal. Any questions concerning these items should be discussed during the time of the orientation. Process safety management is a blend of engineering and management skills focused on preventing catastrophic accidents, particularly explosions, fires, and toxic releases associated with the use of chemicals and petroleum products. To help ensure the safe and healthful workplace, OSHA has issued the Process Safety Management of Highly Hazardous Chemicals Standard, which contains requirements for the management of hazards associated with processes using highly hazardous chemicals. There are 14 parts of PSM that OSHA requires chemical facilities to have. The first one is employee participation. Second, process safety information. Third, process hazardous analysis. Fourth, operating procedures. 5, training. 6, contractors. 7, pre-startup safety reviews. 8, mechanical integrity. 9, hot work permits. 10, management of change. 11, incident investigation. 12, emergency planning and response. 13, compliance audit. And 14, trade secrets. Those are the 14 parts of PSM. These are located in the Calumet Montana Refining Policies and Procedures Manual. The hard copy of the Policies and Procedures Manual can be found in the Safety Specialist Office. You can also look it up on any computer in the refinery. Just click on the Policies and Procedures Manual on the desktop, and it will list all 50 of our programs. You can click on any program that Calumet Montana Refining has. You can review it or print off any program. They are also there for you to look at 24 hours a day. Calumet Montana Refining purge of choice is nitrogen. We do a lot of purging with nitrogen. The danger of purging with nitrogen is that it displaces oxygen. Whenever we do a nitrogen purge, we'll put up a nitrogen purge progress sign and barricade the area. When you see these signs and barricade tape, go upwind, crosswind, and get away from the area. Before we do any disturbing of soil at Calumet Montana Refining, an excavation approval must be acquired from maintenance and operations. The contractor must meet with the safety department or area superintendent to review these requirements prior to commencing work. The goal of the safety orientation is to facilitate the safe and efficient completion of contracted work. Cooperation and communication between the contractor and the company is essential to meeting this goal. Any questions concerning these items should be discussed at this time. Remember, everyone at MRCI is responsible for promoting safety, and by working together, we can ensure an incident and injury-free workplace.